The Renaissance was born in the heart of Italy, where the decay of feudal structures and the shifting fortunes of merchant republics paved the way for a revival of ancient ideals. In the vibrant city-states of Florence, Venice, and Milan, scholars and artists rediscovered the writings and philosophies of ancient Greece and Rome. These classical texts, preserved by Arab scholars and passed along through Byzantine intermediaries, ignited a spark in the minds of Italian intellectuals. As trade flourished and wealth accumulated, patrons such as the Medici family commissioned artworks, architectural marvels, and scientific studies that celebrated the beauty and potential of humanity. During this period, humanism became the guiding philosophy. Thinkers began to place value on the individual's capacity for reason and creativity, rather than solely on religious dogma. This shift allowed for the exploration of a wider range of subjects, from mathematics and astronomy to literature and art, with a newfound belief that knowledge could lead to improvement in all aspects of life. The humanist scholars traveled far and wide, collecting manuscripts, translating ancient texts, and debating ideas that challenged the rigid scholasticism of the Middle Ages. Their lively discussions in the public squares and intimate salons of Italian cities contributed to a cultural atmosphere that encouraged intellectual freedom and a passion for learning. In art, this blossoming of classical ideals was revolutionary. Artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael did not merely create religious icons, but explored anatomy, perspective, and the interplay of light and shadow to capture the natural world in astonishing detail. Their works were imbued with a balance of beauty and realism, reflecting an intimate understanding of human emotion and the intricacies of nature. Leonardo's sketches reveal the inner workings of the human body and the secrets of machinery, while Michelangelo's sculptures capture the dynamic tension of the human form frozen in time. Every brushstroke and chiseled detail echoed the Renaissance belief that art should reflect the complexity and grace of life. The architecture of the Renaissance also embraced the classical past. Buildings were designed with symmetry and proportion in mind, drawing inspiration from the ruins of ancient Rome. Domed churches, grand palazzos, and civic buildings featured columns, arches, and ornate facades that not only impressed the eye, but also spoke of a renewed belief in order and beauty. Architects like Brunelleschi, who engineered the dome of Florence Cathedral, demonstrated that innovation and tradition could coexist. His work combined rigorous mathematical precision with the expressive potential of human creativity, laying the foundation for modern engineering and design. At the same time, the scientific revolution was quietly taking shape alongside these artistic and literary achievements. Scholars like Galileo Galilei and Nicholas Copernicus began to challenge the established views of the cosmos. They questioned long-held Aristotelian theories and the geocentric model that had dominated medieval thought. In the quiet halls of universities and the bustling workshops of master craftsmen, experiments were conducted and observations recorded with a clarity and precision that would later change the very nature of science. The Renaissance was not just a revival of old ideas. It was a bold new approach to learning and inquiry, driven by the belief that through observation and reason, humans could unlock the secrets of the natural world. The social and economic fabric of Renaissance society was equally transformed. With the rise of powerful merchant classes, the traditional feudal order began to wane. Wealth was no longer tied exclusively to land ownership. Instead, trade, banking, and commerce created a new class of citizens who valued education and cultural refinement. The Italian city-states, rich from trade across the Mediterranean and beyond, became melting pots of ideas, art, and innovation. The competition among these city-states led to a flourishing of public works and cultural projects, as rulers and wealthy families alike sought to leave a lasting legacy in stone and paint. Religion, too, underwent a profound transformation during the Renaissance. While faith remained a central aspect of life, the period also witnessed the rise of critical inquiry into traditional doctrines. The interplay between the sacred and the secular was complex and often controversial. Reformers within the church began to question the accumulation of wealth and the corruption that had crept into religious institutions, setting the stage for later movements of Reformation. This questioning did not result in outright rejection of spirituality. Rather, it encouraged a more personal and introspective relationship with the divine, one that emphasized the beauty of creation and the infinite potential of the human spirit. As trade routes expanded and exploration reached new horizons, the Renaissance also began to influence distant lands. Italian merchants, travelers, and scholars carried their ideas and innovations across Europe, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural landscape far beyond Italy's borders. The printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century, played a crucial role in disseminating these revolutionary ideas. For the first time, books could be produced quickly and inexpensively, making knowledge accessible to a much broader audience. This democratization of learning further accelerated the spread of Renaissance ideas, enabling a gradual but profound shift in European society. The period was not without its tensions and contradictions. The same spirit of inquiry that led to breathtaking works of art and scientific discoveries also fueled debates about the nature of authority, the role of the state, and the limits of human understanding. Intellectuals wrestled with the tension between reason and faith, between the inherited traditions of the past and the promise of a future reimagined by human potential. These debates were not mere academic exercises. They were the crucibles in which modern Western thought was forged, blending philosophy, politics, and art into a vibrant tapestry of ideas that still influences us today. Throughout this transformative era, the gentle hum of progress was interwoven with the daily lives of ordinary people. Farmers tilled their fields, artisans labored in workshops, and merchants negotiated deals in bustling marketplaces, all contributing to a renewed sense of possibility. The spirit of the Renaissance was not confined to the grand halls of academia or the gilded palaces of the elite. It permeated every facet of life, offering a quiet reassurance that, even in times of turmoil, beauty and reason could prevail. In the twilight of the medieval period, as the old ways crumbled and new ideas took root, the Renaissance emerged as a beacon of hope, a reminder that the human spirit, when freed from the constraints of dogma and darkness, can reach heights of creativity and understanding previously thought unattainable. This awakening was both gradual and revolutionary, a mosaic of small insights and grand visions that together redefined the course of history. The art, science, literature, and philosophy of the Renaissance set the stage for the modern age, creating a legacy that endures in every facet of our lives, from the buildings we inhabit to the ideas that drive our innovations. As we follow this narrative, let the gentle cadence of these timeless stories lull you into a state of calm reflection. The Renaissance invites you to marvel at the ingenuity of those who dared to challenge the limits of their world, inspiring us to see beauty in knowledge and strength in the pursuit of truth. In this first part, we have journeyed from the medieval shadows into the dawning light of a new era, a moment when the promise of renewal began to echo across Europe, heralding a future filled with possibility and grace. The Renaissance ushered in a period of profound transformation, not only in the arts, but in the very framework of European society. In cities such as Florence, Venice, and Rome, where the echoes of antiquity mixed with the pulse of emerging commerce, power began to shift away from the old feudal aristocracy toward a vibrant class of merchants and bankers. This burgeoning middle class, enriched by trade with both Eastern and Western worlds, became key patrons of the arts and learning. Families like the Medici in Florence exemplified this phenomenon. Their wealth, amassed through banking and commerce, was reinvested in cultivating a cultural renaissance that redefined human potential. As the patronage of art flourished, so too did the spirit of intellectual exploration. Libraries and private collections grew as collectors sought to preserve the wisdom of the ancients and to disseminate new ideas. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century played a pivotal role in this process. For the first time, classical texts, scientific treatises, and philosophical works could be mass-produced and shared widely, igniting a revolution in knowledge that transcended the boundaries of city-states. This newfound accessibility to literature and scholarship transformed education, enabling a broader section of society to engage with the ideas that were once the exclusive domain of the clergy and nobility. In the realm of science, the Renaissance marked the birth of a new methodological approach. Scholars began to challenge established authorities by relying on empirical observation and experimentation. Figures such as Galileo Galilei revolutionized the way nature was studied. With the telescope, a tool refined during this period, Galileo peered into the heavens, unveiling a cosmos that contradicted long-held Aristotelian beliefs. His observations of celestial bodies not only supported the heliocentric model proposed by Copernicus, but also paved the way for future scientific inquiry. This period was characterized by a bold curiosity, a willingness to question and to seek truth in the natural world through evidence rather than tradition. The confluence of art and science during the Renaissance gave rise to the archetype of the Renaissance man, an individual whose talents spanned a wide range of disciplines. Leonardo da Vinci, perhaps the most iconic figure of the era, embodied this ideal. His notebooks are filled with sketches that explore the intricacies of human anatomy, innovative engineering designs, and detailed studies of natural phenomena. Leonardo's work transcended mere representation. It was an exercise in observation, analysis, and creative synthesis. His art, infused with scientific precision, became a testament to the belief that beauty and knowledge were not mutually exclusive, but were, in fact, two sides of the same coin. This blending of disciplines extended to architecture as well, where innovators like Filippo Brunelleschi reimagined the possibilities of construction and design. Brunelleschi's engineering of the dome for Florence's cathedral was not only an architectural marvel, but a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. His work demonstrated that by studying and applying the principles of geometry and perspective, architects could construct edifices that reached toward the heavens while remaining firmly grounded in the classical ideals of symmetry and proportion. Such projects were monumental in both scale and impact, inspiring future generations to push the limits of what was possible in built form. The flourishing of art, science, and literature was paralleled by significant shifts in political thought and organization. As the old medieval structures began to wane, a new political landscape emerged where civic pride and republican ideals took root. In many Italian city-states, communal institutions and assemblies began to replace the arbitrary rule of feudal lords. These early experiments in self-governance, though imperfect, sowed the seeds for later democratic thought in Europe. Public debates held in the piazzas and the lively exchanges among scholars and statesmen became the crucibles in which modern political philosophy was forged. Ideas of individual liberty and civic responsibility, once abstract, began to permeate the fabric of society, leading to an era of political renewal that mirrored the artistic and scientific rebirth. Yet, the Renaissance was not solely a period of unbridled optimism. Its progress was accompanied by tensions and conflicts that underscored the transformative nature of the age. The clash between the old and the new sometimes erupted into strife. Debates over the proper role of religion in public life became increasingly contentious. Reformers and traditionalists alike engaged in fervent discussions about the balance between faith and reason. Even as new scientific discoveries challenged established doctrines, the Church retained enormous influence over daily life. This collision of ideas prompted a re-examination of long-standing beliefs, setting the stage for later reform movements that would profoundly alter the religious landscape of Europe. Economically, the Renaissance era witnessed a dramatic reconfiguration of wealth and power. The growth of trade networks across the Mediterranean and later with the East enriched many city-states and ignited a competition that spurred further innovation. The accumulation of wealth allowed for the funding of ambitious projects, be it the construction of magnificent palazzos, the commissioning of grand frescoes, or the sponsorship of voyages that would eventually lead to the discovery of new lands. With increased prosperity came the need for new financial instruments and methods of accounting, laying the groundwork for modern economics. Banking systems flourished, and the establishment of credit and insurance practices during this period provided the financial stability necessary for large-scale ventures. In a sense, the Renaissance was as much an economic revolution as it was an artistic or intellectual one. The interplay between economics and art was particularly evident in the patronage system. Wealthy families not only sought to immortalize their legacies through the commissioning of art and architecture, but they also used these projects as a means to assert their social status and influence. The artistic masterpieces created during this time were not merely decorative. They were imbued with symbolic meanings that spoke to the power and prestige of their patrons. Statues, paintings, and buildings often depicted classical themes and allegorical narratives, linking the successes of the present to the grandeur of the ancient past. This deliberate cultivation of legacy provided both a tangible record of human achievement and a source of inspiration for those who would follow in the footsteps of these early innovators. Education, too, underwent significant transformation during the Renaissance. The rediscovery of classical texts and the advent of the printing press democratized knowledge, allowing learning to spread far beyond the confines of monastic scriptoria and royal courts. Universities and academies blossomed throughout Europe, becoming centers where students could immerse themselves in the study of language, science, and the humanities. The curriculum expanded to include not only theology and philosophy, but also mathematics, astronomy, and natural history. In these institutions, the process of learning became an active engagement with the world, a dynamic interaction between theory and practice that fostered a spirit of inquiry and debate. This intellectual ferment laid the foundation for the scientific revolution that would follow, altering the course of human thought for centuries to come. Socially, the Renaissance was a time of evolving values and changing lifestyles. As urban centers grew and prosperity spread, the rigid hierarchies of medieval society began to loosen. Artisans, merchants, and scholars found themselves ascending to positions of influence, contributing to a more dynamic and fluid social order. The shift toward individualism was reflected not only in the arts and sciences, but also in everyday life. People began to celebrate personal achievement and self-expression, challenging the communal norms that had dominated previous generations. This embrace of individuality fostered an environment where innovation was not only welcomed but expected, a vital ingredient in the recipe for progress that defined the Renaissance. Religion, while still a dominant force, started to take on new forms during this time. Amid the splendor of Renaissance art and the breakthroughs of scientific inquiry, there emerged a more personal, introspective form of spirituality. This was not a rejection of the divine, but a transformation of how individuals related to it. The mysteries of nature, the beauty of the human form, and the pursuit of knowledge all became avenues through which people sought to understand the world and their place within it. While powerful institutions maintained their influence, there was an undercurrent of reform and renewal that questioned long-held practices and advocated for a more enlightened approach to faith, one that would eventually culminate in movements that reshaped the religious map of Europe. The Renaissance, with its blend of art, science, politics, and commerce, was a crucible of change that laid the groundwork for the modern world. It was an era defined by contrasts, the interplay of light and shadow in painting, the collision of tradition and innovation in thought, and the delicate balance between individual expression and communal responsibility. Through it all, there was a persistent, gentle drive towards self-improvement, a belief that human beings, endowed with reason and creativity, could elevate themselves above the limitations of their circumstances. In this second part, we witness the deepening of the Renaissance's legacy, a time when the collective achievements of artists, scientists, and thinkers not only redefined their own era, but also set in motion the evolution of modern Western civilization. The blend of classical revival and contemporary innovation created a cultural mosaic that continues to inspire and instruct, urging us to appreciate the eternal dance between knowledge and beauty. As we continue our journey through this remarkable period, the rich tapestry of the Renaissance unfolds further, revealing insights into how human creativity and determination can transform even the darkest times into a brilliant era of enlightenment and hope. The Renaissance's influence soon began to extend far beyond the borders of Italy, sparking significant transformations across Europe. As the ideas of humanism and classical revival spread, rulers and intellectuals alike recognized that the principles of balance, proportion, and reason were not solely confined to art and literature. They could also serve as guiding lights for governance and the organization of society. In many emerging states, the rediscovery of ancient philosophies encouraged political reform. Leaders who had once ruled by divine right or by inherited authority began to entertain the possibility that a government based on rational debate and the common good might yield a more prosperous and harmonious society. This period saw the early seeds of modern political thought, as citizens and scholars discussed how to merge the wisdom of antiquity with the practical challenges of governing a changing world. Amid this evolving political landscape, the Renaissance also became a fertile ground for new ideas in philosophy. Thinkers such as Erasmus, Thomas More, and Machiavelli engaged in rigorous debates about the nature of power, ethics, and the role of the individual within the community. While Erasmus championed the peaceful coexistence of faith and reason and more envisioned an ideal society built on justice and equality, Machiavelli introduced a more pragmatic, if controversial, view of statecraft. His writings, notably The Prince, were not mere manuals for tyranny, but rather candid examinations of how rulers might navigate the complexities of power in a turbulent world. Even as these ideas sometimes clashed, they all contributed to a growing discourse on the relationship between the individual, the state, and the common good, a dialogue that would echo through centuries and lay the foundations for modern democratic principles. Parallel to these political and philosophical developments was an explosion of scientific inquiry that forever changed our understanding of the natural world. In universities and private workshops scattered across Europe, scholars began to systematically observe nature, measure its phenomena, and record their findings in painstaking detail. Mathematics and geometry, long regarded as abstract pursuits, found practical application in art and architecture. Innovators such as Leonardo da Vinci and later scientists like Galileo Galilei merged artistic skill with scientific observation, forging a new discipline that we now call the scientific method. Their investigations into the properties of light, the mechanics of motion, and the structure of the human body challenged long-standing beliefs and set the stage for the later advances of the Enlightenment. Galileo's trials with the telescope opened the heavens to human scrutiny. His careful observations of the moons of Jupiter and the phases of Venus provided strong evidence for a sun-centered universe, a radical notion that gradually displaced the geocentric models passed down from antiquity. This shift in perspective was more than a mere scientific revolution. It was a profound change in humanity's place in the cosmos. No longer did people believe themselves to be the fixed center of creation, but rather part of a vast, dynamic universe governed by natural laws. This transformation fostered a new humility and curiosity about the natural world, and encouraged the belief that through reason and careful study, mankind could continue to unlock the secrets of existence. The arts continued to evolve alongside these scientific breakthroughs, each discipline influencing the other in a seamless dance of innovation. In painting, artists refined techniques of perspective and chiaroscuro, using light and shadow to create a sense of depth and volume that brought their subjects strikingly close to life. The careful rendering of human emotion and anatomical precision found in the works of Titian, Caravaggio, and later Rembrandt expressed a dual commitment to aesthetic beauty and scientific accuracy. Their canvases captured fleeting moments of introspection and triumph with a calm intensity that invites the viewer to pause and reflect, much like a soft melody that soothes the restless mind. Sculpture, too, experienced a profound rebirth during this time. Michelangelo's David, with its finely detailed musculature and serene yet determined expression, remains an enduring symbol of the human potential for greatness. In every chiseled curve, one sees the imprint of a new philosophy, that art should reflect the inherent dignity and complexity of the human form. The sculptors of the Renaissance did not simply recreate the images of religious icons. They elevated their subjects to the status of ideals, representing not just physical beauty, but also the capacity for moral and intellectual excellence. Literature and poetry flourished during this period, as writers drew inspiration from the rediscovered classics while infusing their works with a new, personal voice. The lyrical verses of Petrarch and the epic narratives of Dante and Boccaccio resonated with readers, combining the precision of classical form with the emotional depth of human experience. Their works, written in the vernacular languages rather than Latin, helped democratize knowledge and allowed a broader public to engage with the great ideas of the time. This literary revolution not only enriched the cultural fabric of Europe, but also laid the groundwork for the modern literary tradition, one that values clarity, depth, and the exploration of the human spirit. Trade and commerce, too, underwent significant transformation during the Renaissance. With the expansion of Mediterranean trade routes and the flourishing of banking in cities like Florence, the economic landscape of Europe was dramatically reshaped. Wealth was increasingly generated through commerce rather than land ownership, creating a dynamic environment in which financial innovation was as crucial as artistic or scientific brilliance. This era saw the development of double-entry bookkeeping, which allowed merchants to track their profits and losses with unprecedented accuracy. Such innovations contributed to the rise of a market economy that not only funded the arts and sciences, but also began to influence social structures and political power in ways that continue to resonate in today's economic systems. At the same time, the cultural exchanges brought about by exploration and trade expanded the horizons of European society. Ideas, goods, and even culinary traditions flowed into the continent from the far reaches of Asia and Africa. This influx of new perspectives enriched European art and science, spurring further innovation and creativity. The Renaissance became a bridge between the known world and the vast, uncharted territories that lay beyond Europe's shores, sparking curiosity that would eventually lead to the Age of Exploration. In this context, the period was not merely a revival of ancient wisdom, but a dynamic fusion of diverse influences that transformed the European mindset from insular to outward-looking. Throughout these developments, a consistent thread of optimism and a belief in the power of human ingenuity prevailed. Even as challenges arose, be they in the form of political intrigue, religious conflict, or the inherent uncertainties of scientific discovery, the spirit of the Renaissance imbued its practitioners with a sense of resilience. This was an age where every breakthrough, whether in art, science, or thought, was celebrated as a triumph of human potential. It was a time when the pursuit of knowledge was intertwined with the quest for beauty and truth, forging a legacy that still inspires modern creativity and inquiry. In the quiet moments of reflection that characterized daily life, the Renaissance invited both the elite and the common citizen to pause, observe, and wonder at the marvels of their world. As painters mixed vibrant pigments, architects drafted innovative designs, and scholars debated in sunlit courtyards, there was an underlying recognition that progress was not merely a series of isolated events, but a continuous, interconnected tapestry of human achievement. This recognition nurtured a calm determination to improve, to innovate, and to carry forward the torch of enlightenment, even in the face of uncertainty. The influence of the Renaissance would ripple through the centuries, inspiring the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, and the modern age of discovery. Its legacy is evident in every field of human endeavor, from the precision of modern engineering and the dynamism of contemporary art to the democratic ideals that underpin modern political institutions. The Renaissance stands as a testament to what can be achieved when humanity embraces its potential and dares to reimagine the boundaries of what is possible. As we continue this narrative, the vivid colors and refined harmonies of Renaissance thought and creation echo softly in the background, inviting us to appreciate the enduring beauty of a period that transformed the very soul of Europe. The spirit of inquiry, the celebration of the human form, and the meticulous attention to both scientific detail and aesthetic elegance all coalesce to form a legacy that is as timeless as it is transformative. This enduring legacy is a quiet reminder that through knowledge, art, and innovation, humanity can rise above adversity and craft a future that is both enlightened and profoundly humane. As the Renaissance progressed, its impact extended beyond the cities of Italy, spreading like ripples across the vast expanse of Europe. In Northern Europe, the influence of Renaissance ideals merged with local traditions to create distinct cultural expressions that celebrated both the revival of classical learning and the enduring spirit of medieval heritage. In regions such as the Low Countries, Germany, and England, scholars and artists adapted the humanist spirit to their unique social and political environments. Here, the printed word became a powerful tool in disseminating new ideas, and the emerging centers of learning nurtured intellectual debates that set the stage for later revolutions in thought and government. The political landscape of Europe began to transform as the old order of feudal allegiances gave way to more centralized forms of governance. In Italy, the independent city-states experimented with various forms of republican government, where civic institutions and public debate played a role in shaping policy. This atmosphere of relative freedom provided fertile ground for the development of a political culture that valued reason, dialogue, and the common good. Meanwhile, in Northern Europe, rulers who were exposed to Renaissance ideas started to adopt policies that emphasized merit and public accountability. The rise of a powerful merchant class, buoyed by expanding trade networks, challenged the traditional aristocracy and led to the creation of administrative structures that increasingly reflected the aspirations of a more enlightened citizenry. At the heart of this transformation was a profound shift in philosophical outlook. Humanism, with its focus on the potential and dignity of the individual, encouraged thinkers to question long-held assumptions about society and governance. Influential writers and philosophers began to argue that human affairs should be guided not by inherited dogmas or divine right alone, but by rational debate and an empirical understanding of the world. This intellectual movement questioned the legitimacy of established authorities and paved the way for a new conception of leadership, one that balanced practical governance with the pursuit of ethical ideals. The writings of figures like Erasmus and Thomas More offered thoughtful reflections on the nature of justice and the responsibilities of rulers, suggesting that power should be exercised with wisdom and compassion for the welfare of all. In parallel with these political and philosophical shifts, the arts continued to flourish, mirroring the era's broader cultural renaissance. Artists moved beyond the confines of religious iconography to explore themes drawn from classical mythology, literature, and everyday human experience. This period saw the creation of some of the most celebrated masterpieces in history, as painters and sculptors sought to capture the essence of the human condition. They employed innovative techniques, such as the use of linear perspective, detailed anatomical studies, and dramatic contrasts of light and shadow to bring their subjects to life. Their canvases and statues were imbued with a subtle interplay of realism and idealism that reflected both a deep reverence for nature and an aspiration to transcend it. The art of the Renaissance thus became a dialogue between the material world and the inner world of thought, offering viewers not only aesthetic pleasure, but also a meditation on life's deeper mysteries. Architecture, too, reached new heights during this period. The grand public buildings, civic centers, and religious structures of the Renaissance were designed with meticulous attention to proportion, symmetry, and classical motifs. Architects looked to ancient ruins and texts for inspiration, merging the practical advances of engineering with the artistic ideals of beauty and order. Structures like the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence or the Tempietto of San Pietro in Montorio in Rome exemplify how these principles could be realized in physical form, serving both as functional spaces and as symbols of a new era in which human creativity and rational thought converged. This architectural renaissance not only redefined urban landscapes, but also influenced the development of engineering and construction techniques that continue to be admired and emulated in modern design. The cultural exchanges that defined the Renaissance were further enriched by the age of exploration. As navigators and merchants ventured across uncharted seas, they encountered diverse peoples and cultures, leading to a complex tapestry of ideas and influences that reshaped European perspectives. The voyages of discovery opened new trade routes and brought rare commodities, exotic art, and novel technologies to Europe. This influx of new ideas spurred innovations in cartography, astronomy, and natural science, as explorers, scientists, and artists alike sought to document and interpret the wonders of distant lands. These journeys not only expanded the geographical horizons of Europe, but also deepened its intellectual horizons, reinforcing the notion that the pursuit of knowledge was a lifelong, borderless endeavor. Religious thought during the Renaissance grew increasingly nuanced. While the period is often associated with the reawakening of classical antiquity, it was also a time when the spiritual life of Europe underwent significant reform. The tension between the established church and emerging humanist ideas set the stage for internal critiques that questioned ecclesiastical power and wealth. The seeds of reform, sown by scholars who called for a return to the purity of early Christian teachings, began to sprout across the continent. This reformation of religious thought was not a wholesale rejection of faith, but rather an invitation to reimagine spirituality in a way that resonated with the humanist emphasis on personal dignity and rational inquiry. The blending of faith with reason allowed for a more reflective approach to religion, one that celebrated both the mysteries of the divine and the capabilities of human intellect. Education, a cornerstone of the Renaissance, continued to evolve during this phase. The establishment of academies, libraries, and universities brought together students and scholars from various disciplines, fostering a climate of intellectual rigor and cross-cultural exchange. The curriculum expanded to include not only classical literature and philosophy, but also the emerging fields of natural science, mathematics, and geography. This holistic approach to education helped to cultivate a generation of thinkers who were as adept at scientific experimentation as they were at artistic expression. The democratization of learning, facilitated by the spread of printed books, allowed ideas to circulate more freely, creating an environment in which the boundaries between different fields of study became increasingly fluid. This intermingling of knowledge laid the groundwork for future scientific and cultural revolutions. Economic developments during this phase of the Renaissance were characterized by an increasing sophistication in finance and commerce. With the expansion of trade networks both within Europe and with distant regions, financial institutions grew in complexity and influence. Banking systems, credit mechanisms, and innovative practices in accounting emerged as essential components of the new economic order. This evolution not only supported the lavish spending on art and architecture, but also fueled a burgeoning consumer culture that contributed to the overall vibrancy of Renaissance society. The flow of capital allowed for investments in public works, technological advancements, and educational endeavors, further reinforcing the era's reputation as a time of profound growth and transformation. At the same time, the interplay between art and science reached new levels of integration. The Renaissance saw the birth of techniques that melded scientific observation with creative expression. Artists began to incorporate mathematical precision into their compositions, using geometry to structure space and proportion. Their work not only celebrated the beauty of the natural world, but also provided insights into the principles that governed it. In this way, the visual arts became a medium for scientific communication, a language through which the laws of nature could be expressed in forms that were both tangible and transcendent. This synthesis of art and science created a rich legacy that continues to inform modern understandings of both disciplines. Socially, the period was marked by an ongoing negotiation between tradition and innovation. As new ideas began to challenge long-held beliefs, society itself became a canvas for change. People from all walks of life, whether nobles, merchants, or commoners, found themselves engaged in a collective effort to redefine what it meant to live in a modern world. This redefinition was evident in the everyday practices of life, from the design of urban spaces to the organization of labor and community. The spirit of cooperation, often fostered in guilds and civic organizations, allowed communities to thrive even as the old feudal order gave way to more dynamic and flexible social structures. In the process, the Renaissance instilled a lasting belief in the potential of human ingenuity and collaboration. Throughout these transformative years, the Renaissance maintained an atmosphere of measured optimism. Even in the face of conflicts, uncertainties, and the inevitable challenges of progress, the prevailing sentiment was one of steady advancement and quiet resilience. The great achievements of the time, whether in the form of breathtaking artworks, groundbreaking scientific discoveries, or innovative political ideas, served as constant reminders that human beings possess the remarkable ability to reshape their world through knowledge, creativity, and perseverance. As we explore further into this remarkable era, the narrative of the Renaissance unfolds with layers of intellectual rigor, artistic brilliance, and social transformation. The integration of classical wisdom with contemporary innovation fostered an environment where every field of human endeavor was interwoven with the pursuit of excellence. This period did not simply mark the end of an old age, it represented a rebirth, a return to the enduring values of reason, beauty, and human dignity, all of which continue to inspire and guide modern thought. As the Renaissance matured, its energy gradually began to infuse every facet of European life and, in time, extended far beyond the continent's boundaries. The vibrant interplay of ideas that had blossomed in the Italian city-states rippled outward, transforming not only artistic and intellectual pursuits, but also the very framework of human existence. This era, marked by a renewed belief in the power of human reason and creativity, ushered in an age in which individuals began to regard themselves as active participants in shaping their destiny. The humanist spirit, characterized by the belief that each person possesses the capacity for greatness, was not confined to the realm of art and literature. It permeated governance, commerce, and even the deepest recesses of personal spirituality. The influence of Renaissance thought can be traced through the gradual transformation of political institutions throughout Europe. Rulers and lawmakers began to reimagine the nature of power, moving away from an absolute reliance on inherited authority and divine right toward a system that emphasized the importance of civic responsibility, reasoned debate, and the collective welfare. Early forms of constitutionalism and representative government were born from this spirit of inquiry. City-states experimented with new forms of governance that valued public participation and accountability. And these experiments laid the groundwork for modern democratic principles. The debates held in bustling public squares and intimate academies of the time were not merely academic. They were the crucibles in which new political philosophies were forged, a legacy that continues to shape the governance structures of contemporary societies. The profound shifts in political thought were mirrored by an equally revolutionary transformation in art and architecture. As the Renaissance advanced, the synthesis between classical ideals and innovative techniques reached ever greater heights. Painters and sculptors, guided by a precise understanding of perspective and anatomy, began to create works that captured the subtleties of human expression with breathtaking realism. The innovations of masters like Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael did more than reinterpret ancient forms. They redefined the language of visual expression. Their canvases conveyed complex narratives, blending myth and reality, emotion and intellect, in a manner that continues to captivate viewers today. Each stroke of the brush and chisel mark resonated with a deep commitment to exploring the human condition, encapsulating both the frailties and the enduring strengths of the human spirit. Architecture during the later phases of the Renaissance continued this tradition of merging the aesthetic with the practical. Majestic civic buildings, fortified palazzos, and awe-inspiring churches were erected with an attention to harmony, proportion, and spatial balance that revealed the era's commitment to both beauty and functionality. Architects like Bramante and Palladio took inspiration from the orderly designs of ancient Rome, yet they introduced innovative elements that allowed buildings to breathe with modernity. These structures not only served as physical spaces for public life, but also as embodiments of a philosophy that celebrated order, symmetry, and the transformative power of human ingenuity. The enduring quality of these creations is reflected in the fact that many still stand today as living testaments to a time when architecture was viewed as an art form capable of uplifting the human soul. Simultaneously, the scientific revolution, which had its embryonic roots in earlier generations of inquiry, began to fully assert itself during the latter years of the Renaissance. Scholars, freed from the constraints of dogmatic authority, pursued systematic studies of the natural world. Astronomy, medicine, physics, and biology all benefited from an approach that prioritized observation, experimentation, and empirical evidence. The work of pioneers such as Copernicus, Galileo, and Vesalius established a new paradigm that not only challenged existing theories, but also laid the intellectual foundation for future scientific advancements. Their rigorous methodologies instilled in subsequent generations the belief that nature could be understood and, ultimately, harnessed to improve the human condition. The transformation of scientific thought during this period was both gradual and revolutionary, ushering in a legacy of discovery that would later fuel the Enlightenment and shape the modern technological era. Beyond the realms of politics, art, and science, the Renaissance ignited a profound cultural and social transformation that reshaped everyday life. Economic practices evolved rapidly during this period, driven by an expanding network of trade routes that connected Europe to the Mediterranean, the Near East, and beyond. The newfound wealth generated by commerce and banking not only funded artistic and architectural endeavors, but also facilitated a broader redistribution of knowledge. The proliferation of printed texts revolutionized education, making literature, philosophy, and scientific treatises accessible to an ever-widening audience. This democratization of learning broke the long-standing monopoly of knowledge once held by religious and feudal elites, empowering a new generation to participate actively in the cultural and intellectual life of their communities. The societal impact of these economic and educational shifts was profound. As commerce flourished and new forms of wealth emerged, traditional social hierarchies began to soften. People from diverse backgrounds, artisans, merchants, and even laborers, found opportunities to elevate their status through education and cultural participation. The notion that intellectual merit could transcend birthright became a cornerstone of Renaissance thought. fostering a climate where individual achievement was celebrated. This evolving social order, built on the twin pillars of economic innovation and intellectual empowerment, contributed to a more dynamic, pluralistic society that valued both collective progress and personal expression. In the realm of spirituality, the Renaissance fostered a nuanced dialogue between tradition and modernity. While the Church continued to play a central role in everyday life, the period also saw the emergence of a more personal, introspective form of piety. Religious reformers and humanist scholars alike sought to reconcile the eternal truths of faith with the transformative insights of reason. This intellectual tension led to a gradual reformation of religious practices and the interpretation of sacred texts, laying the seeds for the Protestant Reformation and other movements that would later redefine the spiritual landscape of Europe. Rather than rejecting the divine outright, many Renaissance thinkers embraced a faith that was open to questioning, discovery, and the transformative power of personal experience. This reimagining of spirituality allowed for a more individualized connection to the transcendent, blending the mystery of the divine with the clarity of rational thought. The cross-pollination of ideas that characterized the Renaissance extended its influence well into the modern age. The legacies of the period are visible not only in the magnificent artworks and architectural marvels that dot the European landscape, but also in the foundational principles that underpin contemporary scientific inquiry, political theory, and cultural expression. The techniques of perspective and anatomical precision developed by Renaissance artists revolutionized the way we see the world, while the empirical methodologies introduced by early scientists continue to guide research and innovation. The political experiments of Renaissance city-states, which emphasized civic participation and reasoned debate, paved the way for modern democratic institutions and the enduring belief in individual rights. As the curtain falls on this remarkable era, the Renaissance emerges not merely as a historical period, but as a vibrant tapestry of human achievement, a synthesis of art, science, philosophy, and commerce that continues to inspire and inform our modern worldview. It is a testament to the enduring power of curiosity, creativity, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Even as centuries have passed since its peak, the spirit of the Renaissance endures in the way we approach learning, govern our societies, and celebrate the beauty of the human form. Its legacy is a quiet, persistent reminder that within every individual lies the potential to transform the world, to reimagine the boundaries of possibility, and to forge a future that is as bright and boundless as the human spirit itself. In the gentle cadence of this concluding narrative, we are invited to reflect on the timeless lessons of the Renaissance. Here, amidst the art, the architecture, the scientific inquiries, and the philosophical debates, lies a message of hope and resilience, a message that continues to resonate across the ages. The Renaissance reminds us that progress is not linear, but a tapestry woven from countless threads of human endeavor, each contributing to the rich, ever-evolving story of our civilization. As we carry these insights forward, let them serve as a beacon, encouraging us to embrace our potential, challenge our assumptions, and continue the quest for knowledge and beauty in all its forms.